Well, good morning, everyone. I think we have a few people with us already. It's lovely to be with you again for virtual coffee. This is just the pre-announcement, as it's not quite 11:15 yet. Welcome. Glad that some of you are already joining in. And as ever, it would be lovely to hear from your feedback, whether you can hear me. So we know the technology is working, that you can hear and see me, and then we will start properly in a few seconds. Great to see some people texting in already. So, yeah, Kim says the sound is rather distorted. Okay, so we had this problem in the past, people. I will try to, oh dear, okay. This might be my sound card. In the past weeks, I had that problem, and then I switched to the internal sound card. So let's try something here. I hope I'm not going to go offline, but I'm going to switch my sound card off, and maybe that's going to fix it. Just one moment. Is that better at all? I sound very growly. Do I still sound growly? Great to see already 10 of you joining in. If I still sound growly, I'll have to restart my computer, which is a nightmare. Much better, says Don Birkby. Can I have a confirmation from someone else? It was my sound card. We are in business. Welcome, everyone. With only 1 minute's delay, we are live, and I will hopefully be able to cut the growly bit off if people want to watch it again later. Welcome to Virtual Coffee on Sunday, the 19th of April. It is incredible to think, isn't it, that this is the 5th Sunday that we've had to move all our activities online. The 5th Sunday with an online service, and I think a 3rd Sunday or 4th already with Virtual Coffee. I'm glad you are joining us. Just to remind you, if you want to chat within YouTube, you need to be logged in with your YouTube account or any Google account you have. If you don't have a Google account, you can WhatsApp me, and Dom has already WhatsApped me, and I can see that as well. If you've got my mobile phone number, you can text me. And if you've got email, you can email me. My email address is rector@denhamparish.church. The weather is beautiful. I'm looking out on our wonderful garden, and it is Sunday. It is Resurrection Day. So let's enjoy a cup of tea or a cup of coffee to get together. Today I am Mr. You will get to know our wonderful collection of mugs over the next weeks. So it's so lovely to be with you. In a moment, I'm going to read out the first comments, so keep them coming in. Lovely cup of tea made by my wonderful wife. So here we go. Linda is here. Linda and Guy, Dom's mum and dad, again from Sheffield. Brilliant. They loved the service this morning. Thank you, Linda and Guy. Thank you to Sheffield. Chris, happy anniversary, Dom and Vicky. By the way, who won the jigsaw race you mentioned last week? Ta-da! I have an answer for that because Vicky very kindly sent me the finished product. Here is, hope you can see this, the finished jigsaw puzzle that Dom and Vicky made. I did ask exactly the same question, Chris, when they sent it to me. I said, who won? And apparently by a whisker, Dom and Vicky won. And I'm sure there was no dodgy dealing there. It was all fair, but they're just very good jigsaw puzzlers. Now, we have Kim with us, and Anthony, and Amanda, and Janet, and Sally, and Joy, and Marcel, and who else? Kathy, and Robert, and Bill. Now, really lovely, Bill and Caroline. So nice that you can join us. Bill and Caroline, say hi to all our friends in Denham, and so pleased we could join you from Kirkheaton in Yorkshire. Bill and Caroline were part of our church. They sang in the choir. They moved up north a few years ago. Great that you're with us today. Absolutely brilliant. Bill says, keep safe. Love to everybody, Bill and Caroline. Laura is with us. Happy anniversary to our two couples. And she says, I've been isolating so long. Laura, brilliant that you're at least coming out of your isolation digitally and joining us today for coffee. We've had a few other messages on our other channels. Steve has emailed in and has said, good morning to all. Thank you all again for a lovely service. Stay safe, everyone. Love from Steve and Laura. On WhatsApp, we have messages from Marcel. Marcel says, really enjoying the coffee morning. It's such fun, isn't it, to just come together and to share what's going on and to reflect on the service together. I've really enjoyed doing that with you. So thank you for joining in again today. And then I have received a text message from David. David and Judith, they were part of our church for 3 years, and then they moved westwards to the southwest of England, and they say, great service this morning. Thank you to everyone who took part. Greetings from Box. Thank you, Judith and David. So lovely to have you with us. Well, in a moment, we're going to talk about this service, anything you want to comment on, things that have helped you, questions it might have raised, things you've enjoyed particularly. Pete has joined us as well. He says, great service. Ian, who is also in Sheffield at the moment, where he's got his apartment, he's saying hi to everyone. Chris said they enjoyed Namdi's message, which is very positive. That's Chris, Kathy, and Tim. And we'll get back to you that in a minute. Kath says, hello from the Soul family. And Johnny is with us as well, says morning all. So yes, thank you, Namdi, for your message, which I found very helpful, putting this in context and saying, where are we in this story? It's actually a really helpful way of reading the Bible. Some people call it an Ignatian reading of the Bible, based on the way that Ignatius of Loyola, who's the founder of the Jesuit order, read the Bible, to read ourselves into the story and then to ask God what he wants to tell us through this story. And thank you for doing a version of that with us this morning, Namdi. Namdi, thank you, Chris, Kathy, and Tim. God is with us all. So, yes. Any other thoughts about the service? Keep them coming. Before that, just to check with you, are there other new things you've started? We heard about the jigsaw puzzles. Let me give you an update. I think it was Chris and Kathy who very kindly dropped off a wasgij puzzle with us. It's one of those backwards spelled jigsaws where you don't know what the eventual image is going to be. You just get a clue what the theme is, but then you actually have to work out what it shows on the puzzle. It is very difficult. We've started. We're not doing very well so far. We've managed to get the edge and a few bits, but we're working on it. Any other new things you've started? Would love to hear from you. And then for the last 10 minutes, I would like to home in on the question of faith and doubt, which is, of course, very much at the center of the story of Thomas meeting the risen Christ. But let me get back first to some of your comments. Laura is saying, I've been praying for you, Christoph. Daily we have seen hearses pass our house. Thank you, Laura. Thank you. It's such it's a privilege that we can pray for one another, isn't it? Laura, we're safe and sound here in the rectory. We're so grateful that we have the space here. We're so grateful that we have friends who go shopping for us. Some of you may not know that I have been told by the NHS to shield for 3 months because of my underlying lung condition. But we're in good spirits, and we pray for all of you because we all have challenges of our own in this very strange season, as Chris said in our little interview. Marcel says, was very encouraging service, helping me to keep the faith. Thank you, Marcel. That's really good to hear. And Robert says, very impressive flower cross, well constructed. Thank you, Robert. I should have given that job to someone else, like Anthony, who's a proper graphic designer. I played around with some clever technology and it just didn't work out. So in the end, I thought, let's keep it simple, just overlay that semi-transparent white cross on it. But thank you for the many contributions of flowers to this cross. giving such a great sense of resurrection life, new life springing up. Now, I'm probably going to murder your name. So if you're German, you're Christiane, and if you're not, I don't know how to say your name, but welcome, Christiane. She says, thank you for another great service. I'm so happy to join each Sunday. So happy to have you with us. And I hope we're going to get to know you a bit better over these next weeks. Maybe tell us, Christiane, how you've linked into our service in the first place. Anthony says, service is so much richer when we can link with Bible reading. Been thinking about Thomas for the last few days. That's a really good link here, Anthony, because Anthony's part of the little group that I'm part of, who's just started last Thursday to read the passage for the coming Sunday. And I found that so enriching because we're already in the passage. We're already mulling over it. And we don't come to it cold, as it were, when we come to worship on the Sunday. So thank you, Anthony. And just to reiterate, Edda is going to help me organize the groups. We have spaces. And if we run out of space, we're going to start new ones in this season where we're apart, but we can read the Bible together. Chris says, agree about the flower cross. Beautiful. Is it available to download? So glad you asked, Chris. If you look under the original Sunday worship video that was just premiered a few minutes ago, if you go back and look under more, under the notes, under the video, there's lots of links, lots of goodies for you. Our church magazine, our current one, is still available as a PDF download for free. And also at the bottom there, you can download the cross. It's fairly good resolution in case you want to print it out, put it on your fridge as a reminder of Easter. So yes, the cross can be downloaded, the artwork. Chris is saying my Bible reading group for men has a couple of spare places, in brackets, shameless plug. I can just recommend that group. There are about 3 or 4 people at the moment. They're great guys. If I could join another group, I would love to join them. So men, come on, sign up for Chris's Bible reading group, which I believe Chris is going to be on a Tuesday, but you can confirm that in a second. Janet is saying, excited about our Bible book club starting this week. She has space for more on a Tuesday morning at 10:30 or a Thursday evening at 8. Tuesday, 10:30, Thursday at 8. There you go. And I love the title, by the way, Janet. I like it, Bible Book Club, because that's what it is. We read something together and then we just share our thoughts. That's what it is. You don't need a degree. You don't need to have any specialist Bible knowledge. We come to it as the people we are, and we know that God will meet us in his word. Kathy says, I thought Carol's prayers were wonderfully reflective and full of hope. Thank you, Carol, for your prayers. We're so blessed with people who just take their mobile phone and contribute with the gifts they have. Carol with the gift of intercession, and offer that to us as we worship together. Chris has just confirmed that his Bible book club will be meeting from this coming Tuesday at 8 p.m. So get in there and you can be part of the group from the very beginning, although it's a rolling system and it's not a course. So you can, of course, join whenever you can. Nick has emailed in. Nick and Michelle really enjoyed the service and Bible reading. Hope the online services will continue once lockdown has ended. Fits well with our busy life. Now, there's an interesting one, isn't there? Nick, that's a question we will consider as and when the time comes, how we transition back out of this crisis into a church life where we can actually meet physically, what lessons we are learning, and therefore how our church life might look different to what it's looked before. Amanda is already signing up. There you go, Janet. Isn't that good? That's what coffee is all about. Amanda is saying, Janet, can I join you on Tuesday morning? Janet says, yes, deal done. Brilliantly. I'm just going to look at my other channels and then we'll talk a little bit about this theme of faith and doubt. On WhatsApp, on WhatsApp, Laura has just shared another beautiful image of flowers into her garden, the garden her husband has been working on this year. It does look glorious indeed. And Dom is saying he loved Chris's idea of doing a daily journal. Dom says, I've started a thankfulness diary too this year, and really helps me better understand God's blessing on our lives. What a great idea, a thankfulness journal. And that came out of Chris's short interview, didn't it? That when we start journaling our thoughts, it also draws us to what we are thankful for to God. Well, as I say in a minute, let's talk a little bit about faith and doubt. What are your thoughts? What are your questions about it? Of course, Thomas is at the heart of our Bible reading today. And I'd like to hear your thoughts. And then I'd like to, for the last few minutes, share some of my thoughts as well. So let's have a conversation about faith and doubt. Is that something you wrestle with? Are you all sorted? Did you sort of do doubt in the past and now you've ticked that off and you're motoring on without any doubt? How do you deal with doubt when it comes? Is doubt a bad thing? And I've just done something now that teachers really shouldn't do. It's called a battery of questions. You've probably forgotten my first question by the time I've asked my fifth question. So, what are your thoughts about doubt? Deafening silence, or maybe people typing very busily. Well, I'm going to tell you some of my thoughts in a minute, but I'm going to wait a bit longer. It's good to be silent together, isn't it? To sip your tea, to enjoy this dispersed community and this togetherness. Laura says, one night I woke up with fear. And Laura, it's really interesting, isn't it? That doubt and fear can be bedfellows. They can be close relatives. And while there is some good fear that leads us away from danger we shouldn't engage with, there's also crippling fear. And we know that our Lord Jesus says, bring your fears to me, your anxieties to me, because my love will heal your fear. That's often not an overnight thing. Often we have to commit our fears to God again and again and again. And we know that Jesus, being fully human, struggled with fears, struggled in the Garden of Gethsemane with fears of what was to come over the next 48 hours. Christiana says, doubt can help to get a better understanding. Indeed, I think that's really helpful, Christiana, because when we doubt, it's our choice then to decide what we do with this doubt. And it can help us to dig deeper, to find out more, to explore our doubts and the basis for them. Thank you. Chris is saying, I'm interested in this question of whether doubt is a bad thing or a sinful thing even. Absolutely. Well, Chris, my short answer would be, I do not think that doubt is a sinful thing. It depends what we do with it. That would be my short answer, and I'll expand on that a little bit later. But you look at people through the history of the Bible and through the church, people have had profound doubts at times. And at times it led them down a very bad path. At other times it actually led them, a bit like Christiana said, to dig more deeply. I'm thinking of one of my heroes, Martin Luther, who had serious doubts whether God was a gracious God. And he struggled with that for years. And then he discovered the deep gospel truth in the Bible, that we are saved by grace and not by works. It changed his life. It changed his ministry, and it changed the world. So doubt per se is not a bad or sinful thing. It depends how we deal with it, what we do with it. Anthony is saying extreme events can cause people to doubt their faith, probably now more than ever. Thank you, Anthony. I think traumas, big life changes, they very often can lead us to doubt the very foundations of what we thought was secure, of what we thought we firmly believed. And it's good to be aware of that, to realize these doubts are probably stirred up because ... Janet is saying, I agree, I had a huge amount of doubt at the beginning of my faith journey, and that made me dig much deeper. Laura says, I don't think doubt is a sinful thing. God gave us a free will, intelligence, and deep feelings. Janet, now when I doubt, I go back to moments when my faith was confirmed by God. That's such a helpful thing, isn't it? When we have profound doubts. And this is actually where we connect with the journaling idea. When we have profound doubts, to go back to the moments when we have experienced the reality and presence and peace and love and generosity and grace of God. And a thankfulness journal or any kind of journal can be really helpful. I'm currently transferring one of my digital journals because that software has been sold to a big software company and I don't want to pay money for it. So I've transferred that back onto my computer. And it's so fascinating to see how God has been faithful, times of profound crisis, and then how God has brought me through it. And it strengthens my faith today. Pete is saying, didn't Peter doubt Jesus when Jesus asked Peter to walk on water? We all doubt about things, even when we're 99% sure of the answer. You're absolutely right, Pete. Faith, by definition, is not something that we can scientifically prove. And there will always remain this element where we say, I can't say 100%. And that example of Pete, of course, Pete, is great that you talk about your namesake, Peter, who walked on the water towards Jesus and then began to sink. And it's so helpful because we know what happens next, don't we? He took his eyes off Jesus and then he began to sink. And then Jesus took his hand and pulled him up. So that's one of the best things I can say about doubt is I have doubts, but what I do with them, I look to Jesus. I turn to him. Andrea says, I now accept that doubt will always be with me to some extent, but the flip side is faith. Faith is not always certainty. It can be holding on despite the doubt. And that's nicely put indeed, Andrea. Thank you. So for the last 7 minutes, if it's okay, I will first talk to you for about 5 minutes about some things I this morning jotted down in my journal about doubt, and then we can have a final conversation about that. The first thing I would say about doubt is be honest with God. The Psalms are full of doubting prayers. In fact, Jesus prays a prayer on the cross that comes from Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, from the words of my groaning? We have permission to doubt and to cry out to God, because that's what the prayers in the Bible do. Secondly, be honest with a trusted friend. Don't stay on your own with your doubts. And ask them to pray for you. Sometimes we are in such a bad place that we even find it hard to find words to pray. In those situations, it's so good to know someone else is praying for us, or to pray the prayers of the Bible. Pray a psalm. Pray a set prayer that you know. It might feel like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, but keep praying. I think what does not help is pretending that doubt isn't there, because the things we repress will eventually resurface, and sometimes in unhelpful ways. And what doesn't help either is Christian leaders telling us off for doubting. I sometimes suspect there is an element of control in that when they do that. I'm your leader and I'm telling you it's true, so how can you doubt? The third thing I would say is, I would ask, are there triggers in your life that may be part of the cause? We already touched on that. A recent trauma, a major life change. And if that's the case, be gentle. Give yourself time. Maybe a state of exhaustion, of stress, depression, or overwork. And then the simple question is, can you make any change now, one at a time? What is one thing that I can do today to improve this situation? The fourth thing is, and this is where doubt flips into something negative, the fourth thing is, are you reveling in your doubts and shutting God out? I think that's where it gets dangerous. Maybe there is disobedience in your life that closes the door to God and opens the door to the tempter who would love to wreck our faith. Namdi talked about that in his talk. The disciples were locked in, afraid, probably apprehensive of meeting with the risen Lord after abandoning him. And of course, Namdi also talks about how Jesus offers us forgiveness and recreation. Don't shut God out of your doubt, because it opens the door to the enemy. Maybe you're reveling in your doubts because it's an issue of pride. Maybe you're thinking, I'm very intelligent, so if I don't get to the bottom of these questions, then maybe faith isn't for me. You may have heard of Alistair McGrath, who is an eminent theologian, a former atheist and scientist, and he wrote a book a few years ago, Doubting, Growing Through the Uncertainties of Faith. And this is what he wrote in his book. Let me quote a passage. The beliefs which are really important in life concern such things as whether there is a God and what he is like, or the mystery of human nature and destiny. These, and a whole host of other important beliefs, have two basic features. In the first place, they are relevant to life. They matter in that they affect the way in which we think, live, hope, and act. In the second place, they cannot be proved or disproved with total certainty. By their very nature, they make claims that cannot be proved with certainty. At best, we may hope to know them as probably true. There will always be an element of doubt in any statement which goes beyond the world of logic and self-evident propositions. Christianity shares this situation. It is not unique. An atheist or Marxist is confronted with precisely the same dilemma. Anyone who wants to talk about the meaning of life has to make statements which rest on faith, not absolute certainty. Anyway, God isn't a proposition, he's a person. To accept Jesus demands a leap of faith, but so does the decision to reject him. Really helps. Issue of intellectual laziness or fear. Maybe friends have asked you challenging questions about faith and you don't have the answer. Again, Alistair McGrath says this: the fact that you haven't been able to give adequate answers to someone's questions or objections doesn't mean that Christianity falls to pieces the moment people start asking. It doesn't mean that you've committed some kind of intellectual suicide by becoming a Christian. It does, however, mean that you haven't thought these things through. Your faith is real, but it is not mature. But, and this matters enormously, faith can grow, and it strengthens as it grows. The problem often lies not in the gospel, but in the nature and depth of your response to it. The fifth thing I would like to say, a fifth and final thing, is there is something called the dark night of the soul, and even very mature Christians go through very dark times, and sometimes they don't even know that there is an external trigger. And maybe if you go through a season like this, all that God is asking you at that time is this: will you trust me when the fireworks stop? At the end of our service, I don't know whether you noticed, we showed a little excerpt from the Messiah. It's that wonderful aria, I know that my Redeemer liveth. And you probably know where in the Bible that quote comes from. It comes from the book of Job, who's bereft of every comfort in his life. And he still says, I know that my Redeemer liveth, the dark night of the soul. So those are a few questions, a few thoughts about doubt. I hope you found them helpful. We've got a couple of minutes and then I'm going to sign off. Here are some more thoughts from people. Louise is saying, I used to think doubts were a negative. Now I hold faith and doubt in tension. It helps me to grow. Such a helpful statement. Thank you, Louise. And Nick is saying, doubt makes you think. It's just exactly, basically, what Alistair McGrath says. Not a surprise, Nick, is it? From one scientist to another one. Doubt makes you think, and that's a good thing. Will you let God grow you through doubt, or will you run away from it? And some more comments here on YouTube. Anthony is saying, I've been reading about presence recently and found it helpful to see doubt as a product of not being in the moment. Focusing on things like prayer and Bible reading helps me with this. Thank you. Guy is saying, can doubt sometimes be God testing us? If we continue to trust him, then our faith will become deeper. Thank you, Guy. Janet, I like that phrase, reveling in your doubt. That was definitely me before I accepted Jesus in my heart. Thank you, Janet. That's the fine line, isn't it? Whether we actually put ourselves on the throne of our hearts and say, I am the final arbiter on what's right or wrong, or whether I joyfully surrender to Jesus with my doubts and say, Jesus, I trust in you. Amanda says, Anthony, I'm interested in reading more about seeing the present as a gift, a present. What have you been reading? And Namdi is saying, we have a Denham Parish praying group. If you have any prayer point, kindly email it to me at namdi.maduka@denhamparish.church. It will be treated with confidentiality. So here is an offer at the end that we pray for one another and we keep it confidential. Anthony saying, Amanda, I'm reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Some Eastern philosophy, but many references to Christianity and quotes from Jesus. And I think, again, Anthony, there's a fine line, isn't there? Because Jesus was very much in the now, but his being in the now was tied back to knowing his Father in heaven, who is a God of love and good purpose for our lives. So we don't stay in the now on our own, but we gladly surrender to the God who loves us and is with us. So thank you for another really helpful session. Let me see whether I've got a nice quote to finish off. Yes, I do. I would like to recommend something to you. If you want to think a bit more about faith and doubt, an author called Patrick Regan is really helpful to read or to watch. Patrick Regan is the founder of XLP Youth Work and now of an organization called Kintsugi Hope. He had a real crisis of doubt. He had a nervous breakdown, a burnout, and through that he grew in his faith. And he writes this: my wife Diane and I both felt at a loss for how to cope. At one particularly bleak moment, she stepped out of the room to take a minute on her own to cry out to God. She told him it was too hard and that she couldn't do it anymore. As she prayed, she saw a picture of a tunnel and immediately thought of the phrase, the light at the end of the tunnel. But as she looked, she couldn't see any light in the distance. The tunnel looked too long. As she looked again, she saw the light was around her, at the start of the tunnel, not at the end. In that moment, she knew God had given her a survival strategy to get us through the difficult months ahead. We had to be fully present in the moment. We couldn't look to how life might be in a day, a week, a month, or a year. If we looked ahead, waiting for the light, we'd miss the fact that God was already with us right where we stood. Over the last year, I learned about real courage, peace, anger, guilt, surrender, hope, and God's love. That's Patrick Regan. If you want to read more of his, he's written a book recently called Honesty. Oh, I think I have misquoted that. It's something about honesty. You need to look it up in your favorite bookshop. Patrick Regan, Honesty. That gets you there. And also, recently at Spring Harvest, he gave 3 talks. They were tackling anxiety, tackling depression, and tackling perfectionism. And well worth checking them out. I haven't watched them, but I've heard Patrick Regan speak in the past. So, John Ortberg, says Janet, has a book called Faith and Doubt. Very good. I would underline that with a big marker. John Ortberg is so helpful. Again, I haven't read his book, Faith and Doubt, but I'm convinced it's really good. I've read about 5 or 6 of his books. Ian says, that is so good, revelatory. Don't know what you're referring to, Ian, but I'm glad you've had a revelation. And Sally would also like to choose the Tuesday morning group. Isn't that brilliant? We've already sorted out some Bible reading groups. Well, stay connected. This is one way to stay connected. Stay safe and stay hopeful, because Jesus, the hope of the world, is with us, especially in dark times like these. Great to talk to you. Thank you for joining in, and see you next week. Bye, everyone.